are all like, huh?
Huh? What? You might want to try it. Good morning, everyone. We're live coming at you from West Palm Beach. Again, Dr. Gina Loudon and Miranda Khan.
And
we want to bring in our good friend,
David Brody. We know he uses his concealer in the morning. He's got to cover up all that swamp face he gets if he doesn't, right? Because you're hanging out in the swamp there.
That's right. I've got concealer on, and I like to go on date night with makeup. I don't ever take the makeup off, and I go with lighting and all of that. So, and my wife is like,
TMI?
praise God. Oh, TMI. Speaking about TMI, I had turkey meatloaf last night, but that's another issue. I wanted Mexican, and I went with the turkey meatloaf. But anyhow, speaking of turkey meatloaf, no, just kidding. Terrance Bates is joining us now with the headlines. Terrance, wait. Well, hold on. I didn't mean that as the transition.
I love Terrance's
You're
face.
the main appetizer. You're the main entree, Terrance.
Look at that. Says it all. Terrance, just say it. I know he's got that look like. What you talking about, David?
Well, yeah, what you talking about, Brody?
Exactly.
That is hilarious. All right, let's get serious real quick because there's a lot to talk about news. President Trump expected to turn himself into authorities in Atlanta on Thursday to answer to charges that he allegedly tried to overturn the state's 2020 election. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis reportedly insisting on a $200,000 bond. Posting on True Social, Mr. Trump writing, "I assume, therefore, that she thought I was a flight risk. I'd fly far, far away, maybe to Russia, Russia, Russia." The former president calls the entire case collusion between the Biden Justice Department and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. He's also doubling down on his calls that all of the investigations involving him amount to election interference. Well, this yard sign in Maui, Hawaii, which says Trader Joe must go, is part of what greeted the would-be consoler-in-chief during his visit to the devastated island on Monday. He arrived nearly 2 weeks after the deadly fire that's confirmed to have claimed the lives of more than 100 people. Protesters taking to the streets during the president's visit saying that he's too late and that actions speak louder than words. However, emergency officials say at least 1,000 more people are missing and believed to be dead. The state's governor admits some remains will likely never be recovered or identified. Later, we'll talk with the pastor on the ground there in Maui, helping his community recover. And 2 hours of mediocrity. That's probably one way to describe what many Americans are expecting from tomorrow's inaugural Republican presidential primary debate in Milwaukee. Later today, the Republican National Committee is expected to confirm which candidates will be on the debate stage. While we know President Trump will not be there, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and former Vice President Mike Pence are among the group expected to duke it out tomorrow. While President Trump won't be participating, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson will air a pre-taped interview with the 45th president during that same time period. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now, let's get back to Miranda, Gina, and the guy who just really has come up with some really weird comments this morning.
A little quirky, but that's what we adore. That's why we adore you, Brody.
Absolutely, David. Love you, brother.
I love you too, Terrance.
Yesterday it was a Turkish?
No, Nigerian
musical. And today it was
turkey meatloaf.
Meatloaf.
Can I just say that you're just seeing that this is what happens. You never know what comes out of my mouth, and you're kind of experiencing what my family experiences on a daily basis.
So we're really just saying that's what when we say we're like a family.
We're like a family.
We are.
So,
that's
yeah.
right.
Absolutely. Well, David, if it makes you feel better, you were the topic of conversation at our dinner table last night. My wife was like, I wonder about that Nigerian show you went to. Like, can you take me to a Nigerian show? And I'm like, I gave her the face that I gave you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
You definitely gave us food for thought, for sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of food, how about our spiritual food? Our scripture today is from Jesus Calling. It is Romans chapter 8, verses 1 and 2. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. For the law of the Spirit of life has set you free in Christ Jesus from the law of sin and death. And I love this because it's really describing how no matter what it is you've done in the past, no matter how bad you've been, the moment that you are in Jesus Christ is the moment you're set free from all of that bondage. And there is no feeling in the world like that freedom. And as we talk about freedom every single day on this show, it seems so amazing
more
to
and
me.
more.
So amazing to me that our Bible addresses freedom in the way that especially we need to remember it these days. Breaking overnight, Joe Biden took a trip to Maui. He took a whole 5 hours away from his vacation. He told Maui residents that he knows exactly what they are going through because he had a kitchen fire once. Watch.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
So completely out of touch, this man who had no comment for 3 weeks on the Maui fires takes 5 hours out of his vacation. By the way, Miranda told me he spent 40% of his residency on vacation.
You mean 3 days? It wasn't 3 weeks with the fires, but 3 days with the fires. He had no comment.
3 weeks with the fires, and with no comment, saying no. Remember, it was over the whole course. He had no comment. He didn't ever respond. And now he has rented Tom in Lake Tahoe. If anybody knows who Tom Steyer is, he's a mega billionaire donor from California. He's staying there in Tahoe, and he only went away from that for 5 hours to go say "Yo Hawaii" and pretends to relate to these people from a kitchen fire where he almost who even brings up their Corvette and a cat.
It was awful.
Right.
It was awful.
No, and here's the thing. He's been a tone-deaf president ever since the beginning, since he started. And that's like going to a hurricane, to hurricane victims with all the water damage and say, I had my bathtub overflow one time and I got really bad water damage in the house. I mean, seriously, I would expect him now to say something like that. That's how bad it is.
And he made it about himself, and that's, I think, the biggest tragedy. I think that's the biggest tragedy and travesty of all of this. You've got people who are hurting. You've got an entire community that is devastated, both infrastructurally as well as emotionally, and you make this about yourself. Anyone that's got any sort of humanity would immediately kind of try to console the people who are there, as opposed to making the issue and putting the attention on himself.
Yep.
Well,
But he always does that. I'm sorry. Remember the flag-draped coffin?
Yeah.
He said his son was returned to him in a flag-draped coffin, to that mother standing there receiving her son's body in a flag-draped coffin, and we all know that's a lie. The things that he will just lie to try to make it about him, and the fact that anyone still supports this man is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they really do, and we're going to talk more about Maui again with the pastor in Maui that we talked to about a week or so ago, and get his reaction to the president's visit. And I can't even imagine how we're all like outraged. I can't imagine how he feels. So we're going to talk with him a little bit later on the show. But let's get to our other big story, and that is tomorrow night is the first Republican presidential debate. But without President Trump in the mix, let's be honest, does it really matter? Does it matter? Is there any debate about it? But joining us from Dunsfield, Virginia, with insight is Reagan biographer and presidential historian Craig Shirley. He's also the author of many books, awesome books. His latest is April 1945, The Hinge of History. Always good to see you, Craig. So, Craig, got to ask you, will this debate make it into the history books, or will it be so insignificant that it will be forgotten by basically next week?
It'll probably be forgotten before it's over. I'm afraid to say. Look, there's been many presidential and vice presidential debates over the years, and all of them are forgettable. We can count on one hand the memorable debates over the last 40 years. Reagan's Nashua debate, Reagan's debate with Jimmy Carter in 1980, George Bush's debate with Michael Dukakis. Really is that there's we don't remember anything that Mitt Romney ever did in any of his debates, except he got smashed by Barack Obama. So debates sometimes have consequences, but often they don't. The one thing is about a debate is that unlike Donald Trump, is that the rest of the candidates better show up, because right now they're vying for second place. So now, I would say that who's ever in second right now, and it's up in the air, but they better come wearing a bulletproof vest.
Yeah, Craig, David Brody here in D.C. Let me ask you about the historical context to all of this. Reagan skipped that Iowa debate. Then, of course, he had the big Nashua, New Hampshire, big, I paid for this, Mike, moment back in 1980. Help me through that, because he did, Trump keeps mentioning how Reagan skipped a debate. He did, but it was more than that with Reagan. He lost Iowa. You tell me, you're the historian, but it seemed to me he lost Iowa to George H.W. Bush, because it wasn't just that debate. He wasn't spending much time in Iowa to begin with. It was an Iowa-light strategy.
Yeah, David, you're exactly right. Obviously, you read my book on the 80 campaign. Is that Reagan took off all of 1979 in the lead up to the 1980 primary and general election. He skipped all the candidate forums. He skipped all the debates, and it cost him. Voters resented it. And you're right, he ended up losing to George Bush in Iowa in January 1980. Fortunately, he had 6 weeks to recover. Then it was 6 weeks between the New Hampshire primary and the Iowa caucuses, so he had time to recover. And of course, he won the New Hampshire debate and won the New Hampshire primary, and set him on the path toward winning the nomination and eventually the election. But he paid a very dear price. He was expected to win Iowa, and it was a huge, huge upset that George Bush won the Iowa caucuses in 1980.
Craig, we know that the Team Trump, the surrogates, were banned from the spin room there. So they don't get to go in, for those who don't know what a spin room is, they don't get to go in and answer questions from the press. What impact will this have on the post-debate news cycle?
Yeah, Gina, it's going to get more attention for them. I think it's kind of silly to ban, legitimate surrogates for candidates, especially for somebody who is far and away the front runner. It only means they're going to get more attention. Look, they're going to get their message out. They're going to get out what they're going to get covered, their response to the debate. So it seems kind of silly to me to make this arbitrary ban.
Craig, Shirley, we are out of time, but of course, we appreciate your time as always. Be sure and get his latest book there. It is
I want a
April
copy
1945.
of that. That looks like a great book.
It is going to be a great book. We still have a lot more coming your way. Coming up, Joe Scarborough says the Trump supporters are a cult. Wow. We will show you. Yep, those disgusting comments. Be prepared to throw something at the TV, but don't do it. Don't do it. No. We know you're going to be wanting to do it, but instead, you know what? Go on Getter, get in the chat, share your voice, get it all out.
Or Rumble.
Or Rumble. Yeah, we want to hear from you. That's much better, right?
Yes.
And your TV still works.
And we're back on American Sunrise, Jackson, Mississippi. I should talk like this. I don't know. It's a Southern accent, I guess. Hey, Terrance Bates in Denver here on American Sunrise, and of course the ladies in West Palm Beach. I don't know why I lowered an octave. Miranda Khan and Dr. Gina there in West Palm. Hey, folks, let's go to this story about Joe Scarborough. I know, Alka-Seltzer, but he thinks Trump members or Trump followers are a cult. If you vote for Trump, you're part of a cult. And this is what he had to say on Morning Joe. Have a look.
Let's put a frame around that. They trust the former president more than they trust their own loved ones. 71% say they feel what Trump tells them is the truth, ahead of friends and family at 63%, conservative media figures at 56%, and a religious leader at 42%.
All right, so this weekend, Mika and I, last night, we're having a conversation around the table, and Mika was just asking how could people still be so slavishly devoted to Donald Trump? And it's important to say here we weren't talking about. She didn't ask how could people vote for Republican. She understands how people can vote Republican. She wasn't saying, I don't understand, and we weren't saying we don't understand how. Somebody could be pro-life. We weren't saying we don't understand how people we know could have maybe a more expansive view of the Second Amendment than the Supreme Court even. We weren't talking about issues or socials. It's, again, not related to Republicans or conservatism. We certainly understand what people might be turned off on the left and some of the extremes on the left. This was about Donald Trump. How could people support Donald Trump? And the question just kept coming up, and there were really no good answers, except, the question is it a cult? Is it a cult? I mean, you look at it, Charlie, you look at the definition.
Guys, these folks are a piece of work. Terrance, I'm curious to get your take on this, because my take is, a couple things. One, Trump has always been the vessel. And by the way, Ron DeSantis, not a listless vessel, but he's been a vessel for all of this. And that's what people want. He is basically, can I say the words middle finger? I guess I can. Trump has been like a middle finger to the establishment. And that's what people are rallying around. And Trump just happens to be really good at being the vessel. But in terms of choosing Trump over family members, well, first of all, some of my liberal family members, absolutely, I'm going to agree with Trump over my liberal family members. But beyond all of that, Trump delivered on his promises, Terrance. And it seems to me, he was president. He said he was going to do something, and he did it. That builds trust on the base.
And I'm a firm believer that body language speaks volumes. And I think in terms of the body language we just saw there, kind of the arms folded and I'm greater than thou, there's not even an openness to consider another perspective when it comes to Donald Trump. I think that body language that we just saw speaks volumes about the fact that he's not even open to having a conversation. He's already got his mind made up.
Well, for them, it's personal. They used to be friends. They hung out at Mar-a-Lago. I'm speaking about Joe and Mika. And so this is personal. This is a personal disagreement they had with Donald Trump, and that's what this is about. This is not professional. This is not their truly educated position, right? But secondly, it's a question of authenticity, I think, for most Americans. You see every packaged politician up there. That's why Vivek Ramaswamy has risen up so quickly, is because he just calls it like he sees it, right? Yep. And people love that, even if they don't agree with you on everything. And I don't agree with Donald Trump on everything. But it's that authenticity that people are just thirsting for in a plastic society. Still ahead, Carrie Lake. She is redefining what it means to take on the establishment. She's been banned from the debate spin floor, and she'll be here to discuss with us.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Terrance Bates. Just in case you're wondering, it is 23 minutes past the top of the hour. Again, this segment is brought to you by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. And there is so much to talk about this morning as it relates to mature American citizens. In fact, just south of the nation's capital in Virginia, a state that arguably turned the tide for Republicans to retake control of the U.S. House, shoring up elections, is still top of mind for voters. On Monday, Virginia Fair Elections hosted its fourth Virginia Fair Election Summit, and the goal here, making it easy to vote and hard to cheat. The group was formed in 2021 after concerned Virginia voters determined that mail-in voting and other policies implemented under then Democrat Virginia Governor Ralph Northington opened the door to the possibility of voter fraud. It's a fight that members of the Association of Mature American Citizens is on the front lines of. The group's senior vice president, Andy Mangione, joins me now to put the challenge into better perspective. Andy, so good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what specifically are you hearing from your members as it relates to voter integrity? What are their specific concerns?
Well, they are so concerned after the 2020 election, Terrance, that they insisted that we put election integrity issues into our issues portfolio, into our agenda, and we have. And AMAC members have been very active. You mentioned that Virginia Election Integrity Summit. About 1/3 of that audience or those attendees at that summit were comprised of AMAC members, and they've been showing up to summits like these across the country. They've been very active in election integrity issues on the federal and state level for the past 3 years, and they've been instrumental in getting good laws passed that preserve the sanctity of our elections. Why, you may ask? Because they hold dear and they cherish their sacred right to vote.
Andy, obviously you've got members who are on the grassroots level fighting for election integrity, but from a policy standpoint, what are you guys at AMAC doing as well to lobby for these sorts of issues?
Well, our members are very, very active on the federal and state level, as I mentioned before. A recent example of this advocacy, and they're doing this in states across the country and on the federal level. Back in 2021, our members sent over 250,000 or close to 250,000 messages to the Senate to tell them to oppose the John Lewis the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as the For the People Act. A recent example of this advocacy on the state level is what AMAC members accomplished in North Carolina. Now, Terrance, a bill was making its way through the North Carolina legislature, and lawmakers there decided for some reason to remove very good election integrity components that watered the bill down. Well, AMAC members were activated and sent 22,000 messages to these lawmakers, compelling them to put these important provisions like banning the private funding of elections and preventing non-citizens from voting back into the legislation. So it was a very successful campaign. They've been doing this in states throughout the country.
And in 30 seconds, there are seniors watching this right now saying, I want to get engaged, I want to get involved. How can they do that?
They can go to our website at amac.us. They can follow the website that you're putting on your screen right now. They can call 888-262-2006 to learn more about joining AMAC and get involved in our advocacy.
Andy Mangione, we appreciate your time. Always good to talk to you, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Now let's get you back to Miranda and Dr. Gina. And obviously, we're going to continue, guys, talking a lot about voter integrity here. Carrie Lake coming up later on in the show. That's something that she's been at the forefront of, particularly there in Arizona.
Yeah, I'd love to get our viewers to weigh in on that. Again, go to Rumble or Get Her. Her name has come up time and time and time and time again as being a potential VP pick. I think more so than anybody.
It's all over this morning, and you hadn't even asked the question yet.
Yeah, it's all over. And I also want to know, are you going to watch the debate? What are you going to watch tonight? Let us know your thoughts. Now an update to a story that we brought you yesterday, and it's one that is pretty disturbing. Border crossings by illegals are hitting record numbers. More than 140,000 illegals crossed into the U.S. just last month. That is a 33% jump from the month before, just to put that in perspective. Former National Security Council member and current Real America's Voice contributor, the one, the only Tara Dahl, told us about the number of not Central and Latin American illegals, but record numbers of Chinese nationals, she says, are flooding into our country. Now even more disturbing news, and she joins us live now.
Good morning. It's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you as well.
Yeah, and yesterday we were talking about the increase in the numbers, and the majority of those are coming from Honduras. And those are because of the Biden administration's policies of opening up Honduran family reunification. But what I really wanted to talk about today is we received a memo leaked to us by law enforcement yesterday, and that memo states that there has been a 51% increase in encounters with Uzbekistani nationals at the southern border, and they're specifically crossing through the California corridor. And this is very significant because this document states that they're crossing in between the ports of entry. And what does that mean? It means that they're crossing illegally into the United States, and they're working with smugglers, and they're working with cartels. And the document states that they're paying between $7,000 to $38,000 per person to cross into the United States. So let's just put this into perspective. It's very significant. And when you think about it, this in the last 10 months alone, there have been over 146 terrorists that have been apprehended at the southern border alone, 3 at the northern border that are on the FBI terrorist watch list. And when you put that into perspective of previous administration numbers, we used to see numbers even starting at the Obama administration that were at 0, 1, 2 to 3. Now we're seeing 149 terrorists that have been apprehended that are on the FBI's terrorist watch list. And that doesn't include the known gotaways. There's been over 1.7 million known gotaways since the Biden administration took office. And we don't know about the ones that are not known. So just think of the national security implications that the Biden administration's open border policies are causing in the United States.
Yeah, that number is just jaw-dropping when you really think about it, because that's what we know, going to your point, Tara, not what we don't know. We know people are getting loose every day, and that makes you question things because all of these incentives, right, that we're giving illegal immigrants. Here's some water. Would you like a hotel? Let's set you up in school. You want to be a police officer? You could do that in certain places. So it makes you question why people wouldn't take advantage of that, why they're running away from the authorities knowing that they get a free pass.
Yeah, and another point that's excellent, Miranda, and another point on this memo, on this document, is it says that they're crossing between the ports of entry, but they're also using the CBP One app, which is basically, we've talked about it on this show, that means they're just legalizing illegal immigration, but they're also exploiting the United for Ukraine humanitarian parole program. And why does this matter? This parole program, this is going to be set on trial this Thursday in Texas tomorrow, and it's a lawsuit that was filed against the Biden administration by 21 Republican states back in January. And the trial is Thursday, and basically they're saying that the Biden administration is usurping the power of Congress by using this parole program where sponsors can actually pay for migrants to come over. And there's been over 360,000 migrants that have been coming over from 4 countries over using this parole program.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Well, Tara, we sure appreciate you being with us. We got to go, but thank you. Please stay on that case for us.
Yes.
We know you will, and we'll talk to you about that soon. Thanks, Tara. Coming up, Indiana Jones has gone woke. We have that story in this Stay Awake, Not Woke segment. Don't cry, Miranda.
I am.
That's coming up next. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina, along with Miranda Khan here in the West Palm Beach studios. We have Terrance Bates in Denver, and we have David Brody in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, he's busy.
He got too busy for. He's still eating his turkey meatloaf.
Yeah, we have a lot of people in the chat going, "What is wrong with David?" We'll have to get him to respond to that. But I just want to say, Terrance, I didn't get to say it earlier, but thank you for coordinating. I mean, look at this. Love it.
Yeah,
Love
I know.
You look
We
fantastic.
did not plan this with Terrance.
We did not.
Great minds think alike. We say that all the time. Unfortunately, there's not a great mind at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We've seen that in Maui, guys, right?
Yes, we are. Oof, man. So Joe Biden finally got off of his vacation. Short break, though. He went back to it to visit the devastated island ravaged by wildfires, the worst wildfire in U.S. history. Biden's silence on the tragedy has not gone unnoticed, and his visit comes later than most expected. Again, we're now on the third week. 850 people still missing since this inferno ravaged the island.
And Joe told Maui residents that he understands what they are going through, if you can believe it. Listen.
I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake. It's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
This was a small kitchen fire. It was reportedly under control in less than 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Pastor Jonathan Sanders of the Lahaina United Pentecostal Church is on the ground and has seen the devastation firsthand. He joins us now. Pastor, thank you, first of all, for joining us. Yes. We want you to know that this audience has been in deep prayer for the people in your congregation, but also the whole island and really the whole state. How do you even digest comments like that, where Joe Biden spends 5 hours from a vacation after 3 weeks, essentially, almost 3 weeks, of basically saying no comment on the Hawaii fires, doing absolutely nothing, no words of consolation, Pastor. Then he spends 5 hours away from his vacation, returns to his vacation, but not before making this about him. I can't even fathom how hurt that must make your friends and family there feel.
Yeah, I was so just flabbergasted by those comments. Losing your Corvette or almost losing your cat, when these folks have absolutely lost everything. There's no comparison. It's like saying, I stubbed my toe. Sometimes it's just best to not say anything in these circumstances, and just let your presence be known, and then let your actions speak for you.
Yeah, Pastor, I have to ask you, again, these images that we're seeing, I mean, every time you look at that, you see people standing in the ocean. We've heard reports of people being in that ocean for 2 days, many of whom were elderly because they literally lost everything. So not only did he not comment, then he said no comment, that he was on vacation, and then he tried to compare this worst wildfire in U.S. history to him having a kitchen fire. Yeah. But he's offered the people of Maui $700.
That has totally been. They're laughing at that. To be honest with you, it's like $700 won't pay an electric bill here, and let alone feed you for a month. It's utterly ridiculous for him to do that. I know that there will be more coming, and I'm sure of that. But all the talk in the world is not going to do any good. In fact, the Hawaiian people are waiting to see if there's any action behind these words. You can make all kind of promises, but if you don't come through with it, and if you don't come through with it in a timely fashion, these folks they're on the streets. There's 30 people and more staying in one home. It's just a devastating situation, and action speaks much louder than words.
Pastor, we hear you loud and clear, and it makes so much sense that there's action needed. But I do want to step back a bit because President Biden was supposed to be the consoler in chief. I'm not so sure that happened yesterday. I suspect a number of people in your congregation are coming to you for consolation. Tell us some of the stories that are being shared with you during these consolation sessions, during these sessions when people are just coming to you for hope.
Well, some are not ready to talk about it. Some are just not ready to talk about it. Some are not ready to go back to see if their homes are there or not there, what's left. Some just need somebody's presence there. And as a pastor, being through these types of things, not this drastic ever, I've never been through anything this drastic. I've lost a daughter. I've been through tragedies before, but nothing to this magnitude. And these folks they need to talk to someone, but that's in their time. And some are willing to share now. I'll give you an example. There was a family associated with our church in Lahaina whose uncle was handicapped in a vehicle, and they're trying to escape the fire, and the car in front of them explodes. Their car catches on fire. The auntie gets out, and the uncle cannot get out, and she watches her husband burn to death. That's tragic, and people have to be able to talk and have confidence in someone that they may not understand, and we can't relate to that. I cannot relate to that.
Of course.
But I can be a shoulder for them to cry on. I can hug on them, love on them, and somehow try to let them heal.
Yeah. Well, I really hope just, for the people that are struggling, mental health, as you know, is a passion of mine. There is help. You can call 988 if you don't have access to a phone. I hope that someone with the Biden administration gets some I'm so upset, get some mental counselors out there, because they deserve help.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do.
Yes.
And Pastor, we're thankful, really, that you are a supplication to the people of Hawaii right now, and we know, just sensing your spirit in this interview, we can tell that they're blessed to have you, and that will go a long way into doing God's work for His kingdom. Pastor, thank you. We'll keep you all in our prayers.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time this morning and the opportunity to share.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, for those of us on the mainland that watched the Maui disaster unfold, the overarching question is, would I be prepared for disaster? A lot of people are asking that, and a lot of people are asking us how they can be prepared. And so we set out on a mission to help you. Joining us now with some answers on some ways that you can prepare is Dr. James Thorpe, board-certified maternal fetal medicine specialist and a member of the wellness company that we talk about here on this program every single day. Dr. Thorpe, we urge our viewers every day to be prepared in whatever way they can. And one of the ways we recommend is this sort of comprehensive emergency kit from the wellness company. A few years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought that I needed an emergency kit like this. I wasn't a prepper, right? But nowadays, with the condition of our government, the lies after lies, honestly, them telling us everything is based on climate change, right? And doing nothing as governments to take care of their own people that they're responsible for, that they have a job to take care of. But natural disasters do come. Pandemics do come. What is your best advice, doctor, to those who want to avoid being caught in situations where there is nothing left around them? I've seen this before. I was there on the ground after the tornadoes in Alabama killed hundreds. How would you advise people to best be prepared?
Thank you very much for having me on, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for what you're doing. Listen, this is leaning into your Creator, leaning into God at a time like this. And I'm so grateful that you had the pastor on. This is a horrible tragedy. My love, my thoughts, and my prayers go out to my brothers and sisters in Hawaii. And listen, the message here is prepare for disasters and do not submit to the powers of the enemy. The enemy wants to impose fear and take away your freedom, impose their power, do a power grab. I've been stocking up on medications before the turn of the century, and it has large amounts for my family and friends and patients that can't get them. And that's served my friends and family and patients very well over the last 25 years. There's not a better time right now. Do not submit to the fear pornography of this administration and this corrupt healthcare system. Patients in the healthcare system, your government is not trying to make you healthy. Okay, do not submit to this ridiculous, repeated 7 COVID shots now they're recommending. So this is horrible. They're not safe, they're not effective, and they're dangerous. Get out of these healthcare systems. Come over to the parallel healthcare systems. We have incredible doctors at the wellness company, and there's other healthcare systems that are mirror systems. Get out of the main healthcare systems. Do not take vaccines. We have safe, natural, reformulated medications, including ivermectin, including hydroxychloroquine, and we have incredible supplements, all of which are vetted, and there are research on these. Listen, our spike formula is very important to get. That emergency medical kit is very important to have on hand. Do not take the vaccines. Do not take the vaccines. Please do not take the vaccines.
And if you did, though, going back to that point, the spike formula is something that is right for you, because a lot of people aren't feeling like themselves who've had the vaccine or have experienced COVID. I know Gina says she's still hoping for her sense of smell to come back one of these days, but I rave reviews about your spike support formula. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Wealth of information. Again, use that RAV code. You can save 10% on that. So a lot more to come.
Coming up on American Sunrise, Indiana Jones has gone woke. My husband's going to be devastated about this. So is Miranda. We have that story for you next in our Stay Awake, Not Woke segment.
And without Trump, why even have a debate? I mean, should the first GOP primary debate be canceled? Save the time and money. We will discuss coming up right here on American Sunrise.
Welcome back. It's now time for our Stay Awake Not Woke story, sponsored by Beard Vet Coffee,
which you're now drinking. All right, it's time to stay awake, not woke again. Let's roll it, guys.
Go to beardvet.com. Use the promo code RAV for your 10% off.
And I think maybe our crew needs a little more of that Beard Vet coffee today, right?
Yeah,
I think we all do. We've been running
all of us
a little bit. It's great coffee. So the fifth Indiana Jones movie faced controversy over its woke humor, but its financial failure was likely not totally due to wokeness. So the lead female character made jokes about capitalism and about Indiana Jones stealing from indigenous communities, and that really upset some longtime fans who just want to go and, I don't know, watch a movie without the wokeness. The movie lost a whopping $100 million. That is a huge, that's a huge chunk of change.
Of course they did.
I mean, Terrance. They keep messing with our movies. Snow White, Indiana Jones. First off, come up with something original.
Yeah.
Don't fix what's not broken.
I saw this latest Indiana Jones, and this is a movie from my childhood, so I had big hopes, and this fell flat, not just at the box office, but also in terms of entertainment. And I have to say, it fell so flat that the whole woke concepts that people are upset about apparently went completely over my head. I must have tuned out. It was that bad. The movie just wasn't a good movie. I'm sorry, it wasn't.
No, and now I really don't want to see it. And I love Indiana Jones. I was telling Gina during the break, we have our little girl chat over here. And I was like, you don't understand. I had the biggest crush on Harrison Ford. I'm just like, I love all the Indiana Jones movies. And River Phoenix was in one of them, years ago. Why? Why would you do this? It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and it's just not fair, especially for little boys. And yes, I'm going to be a sexist because I am one right now. Not that little girls don't like it too, but little boys who, grew up with this being, a hero in their mind. I really think what we've done to little boys and heroes is something that this culture is really going to have to address if they really want to even have any semblance of order again ever. I think it's way more insidious than some movie, right, or some cultural commentary. I think this what we've done to emasculate boys and men in this culture is just upsetting to me, and this is part of it.
But Dr. Gina, to your point, I suspect that some of these young people, that they get it and they see past the indoctrination that the media is trying to push on them. And I say that simply for this reason. The other day, my girls and I were in the post office, and they were talking between themselves about Snow White. And they said, and I kind of am listening thinking, okay, they were saying, yeah, this whole new Snow White, it's reimagined. They should just name it something else. It's not Snow White. Let me have Snow White. Let me have the Snow White that I'm used to. Now, mind you, this is coming from a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old. And so I'm thinking to myself, wow, the fact that they're thinking that deeply about it and see past the indoctrination that's being pushed. I was proud as a dad, but I suspect my kids aren't the only ones. My kids aren't the only smart kids out there.
You should.
So I think kids are seeing past that. That's the point.
Yeah, this reminds me of a survey that I just saw that was done by the Des Moines Register in Iowa, a newspaper there, and it said that 69% of voters this election, their number one thing they're looking for in a candidate is somebody that has their common views, compared to only 29% that believe they can beat the opponent, right? That they could, that their candidate that they nominate could beat Joe Biden or could beat Donald Trump. I just think that is an amazing thing, and it's astonishing, but not really when you put it in this context of this movie,
right.
That is just has to inject its values on you. It doesn't make me surprised that 69% of voters want somebody that relates to their values, and that's the most important thing.
Well, I'd love to know if our viewers seen that movie, because I know you did, Terrance. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it now, but have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it? Do you not want to see it? Please weigh in, because your voice, again, most important voice.
Their voice does matter. Network. I still have not seen the Barbie movie because they won't.
I know, we didn't. We took a poll. And she listened to you and didn't go see the movie.
Yeah,
so we
right.
listened.
Yeah. All right, up next, Ron DeSantis takes a swipe at President Trump and his so-called sense of entitlement. That's ahead as American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back to American Sunrise, a live look at Minneapolis, Minnesota there. So before we went to break, we were talking about Ron DeSantis and some of the comments he made about President Trump not debating. Here's that clip from Martha McCallum talking with the governor.
What do you think about the fact that the former president is not going to be on the debate stage next to you, and you won't get a chance to put this directly to him?
Everybody should debate. Everybody has a responsibility to earn people's votes. Nobody is entitled to anything in this world, less of all the Republican nomination for president.
Let's bring back in Dr. Gina and Miranda to see how they feel about this. The word entitlement, that has a lot of people a little upset. So ladies, sound off.
I think it sounds like he's projecting. Maybe?
Do you though? You know, this is I call it all the time. I call it playground politics. It's a takes one to know one mentality.
Mm-hmm.
It is Ron DeSantis projecting onto Donald Trump his own entitlement, and I think that's a psychological phenomenon we see across the board in politics all the time.
So we're having a hard time hearing you, Terrance. Okay, we'll try to reconnect with that in just a moment. Do we have him back?
Can you hear me?
Okay,
Can you hear
Terrance,
me? Can you hear
sorry,
me?
we cut out for a second, but want to make sure that we're hearing you. You were saying?
I was just going to ask you guys, is the real issue the fact that there really is no other candidate who potentially would be on the debate stage with Donald Trump that has any real platform that's not a Donald Trump platform?
That's a good point. That is a really good point. I mean, I don't know. You probably could answer that better.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what your question is, Terrance, but I'm just thinking that, as these candidates all get up here on the stage, all they're going to talk about is Donald Trump. So
are they? Do you think they're going to bring him up by name, though? Because I don't
necessarily think by name. I think Chris Christie might bring him up by name.
Chris Christie might. Mike Pence might. Maybe. Or do you think he's going to say Mike?
But my point is he will be the absolute center stage gorilla in the room.
Even when he's not there.
Even when he's not there, he owns this audience. He owns this primary right now. And really the best thing that every single one of, you know the way to win tonight? You know the way to make history tonight? Get out of this primary and back the primary candidate that this Republican Party has chosen hands down. That's how you win. That's how you make history tonight.
I'm curious, though. I think right now, though, we know a lot of these people are vying. Terrance, we've talked about it before. They're vying for cabinet positions, maybe to become vice president. Vivek has been climbing in the polls, knocking out DeSantis in a number of states. So it'll be interesting to see. But this is a make or break. Again, I don't think so much for the presidency and who will be the front runner, because clearly we know who that is. And he's not just by a little bit, but by a large margin. Some polls having him at 60%, higher than we've ever seen. I think this is to see who's going to be second place. And again, to narrow the field once again. And I think it'll be interesting. I mean, some of the things that I'm looking forward to seeing, I mean, Penton, Chris Christie, but I think Vivek, I'm interested to see Vivek and DeSantis and to see how that plays out, that dynamic. So, I get it that a lot of people aren't going to be watching the debates. I'm probably going to be doing this, looking over here, looking over here. What was Trump saying? What's this person saying?
Yeah, I think we'll be watching both, but I got to say that's cute by half. That is, these people, in a moment where we are in a day where they are trying to arrest their political enemies, they are incessantly persecuting them. It is not okay to most Americans that they are taking up resources and time and opportunity that should be all dedicated right now, in my personal opinion, to Donald Trump and beating the deep state.
Well, you know what? That's a good point, because Vivek did say last time, remember, he said he came over here to Florida. He spoke out. We should all be going against this. We shouldn't be doing certain things until he's justice. So I see your point there. Yeah. What do you think about that? Those of you at home, again, welcome to this edition of American Sunrise. Speaking of which, share your opinion on social media. But coming up, second hour of American Sunrise, you don't want to go anywhere. Carrie Lake is in the house. Can't wait what she says. She's got so much to say. And what does she feel about these debates, right? She's been called out for some of her comments recently about Trump not wanting to debate, and she's not going to be able to be at the debate. We're going to ask her those questions and more when we return. We'll be right back. Without Trump, should they even put the lights on? Will tomorrow's first Republican presidential debate be a flop, like a, woke Disney movie?
The head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says drag races and drag shows on base, well, they're not a problem. Now that you're awake, we'll get into this woke debate.
And Carrie Lake defines what it means to be fearless today's dog-eat-dog world of politics. She's been banned from Fox News' spin room at the debates tonight. She'll be here live to comment those stories and more on the second hour of American Sunrise. And we continue right now.
got your back as you start your day.
You are articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Gina. Good to be with you.
And good morning. I'm Miranda Khan. We are coming to you live from West Palm Beach, Florida. And we're already in the second hour. It's been a jam-packed show.
You can always tell how much time has passed by how much lipstick is on our cups. They get just lacquered.
Covered. Lacquered. But you know what? This Beard Vet coffee, gotta love it.
Gotta love it.
What we don't love is some of the news that is making headlines. That's where we want to welcome in our very one and only Terrance Bates. Coordinating just perfectly with the wardrobe today with a look at our headlines. Good to see you, Terrance.
Ladies, good morning, and good morning to you at home. 2 hours of mediocrity. That's one way to describe what many Americans are expecting from tomorrow's inaugural Republican presidential primary debate in Milwaukee. Later today, the Republican National Committee is expected to confirm which candidates will be on the debate stage. While we know President Trump will not be there, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and former Vice President Mike Pence are among the group that's expected to duke it out tomorrow. While President Trump won't be participating, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson will air a pre-taped interview with the 45th president during that same time period. Well, hurricane season is underway. While California is drying out from Tropical Storm Hillary, Texas is bracing for up to 5 inches of rain from a storm system in the Gulf that could become a named storm as soon as today. The National Weather Service says Tropical Depression 9, as it's called, is one of 5 systems swirling in the Atlantic. As a result, forecasters are now saying they expect a more dangerous Atlantic storm system this year than was previously thought. That forecast could have a significant economic impact, as the storms could limit up to 15% of the country's crude oil production and 5% of the U.S. dry natural gas output. The jailed founder of now bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange FTX has a new date with a judge today to answer to new fraud and conspiracy charges. It is the 31-year-old's first court appearance since his bail was revoked a couple of weeks ago for allegedly tampering with a witness. During today's hearing, Sam Bankman-Fried is expected to plead not guilty. He's already pleaded not guilty to 3 other indictments. 3 people who worked with Bankman-Fried at his hedge fund, Alameda Research, have already pleaded guilty and agreed to testify against him. The crypto whiz is accused of stealing billions of dollars from FTX customers. He also donated more than $100 million to political campaigns in an effort to promote crypto-friendly legislation. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming up in just a little bit. Now, let's get you back to Dr. Gina and Miranda, the ladies who match me so marvelously.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Tomorrow night's Republican debate will lack the luster of debates past, and it's because a certain former president, can't imagine who we're talking about, will not be taking the stage.
Yeah, President Trump's lead is growing among the party faithful, where he has a solid 54% of the voters. Yeah, that's conservative. Like I said, there are a couple polls that have him well over 60% that are backing him. His closest competitor, and I think that may be changing ever so, but that was Ron DeSantis. He's a meager 15%, but I see some polls showing him tied now with Vivek as he continues to climb and DeSantis continues to descend. Joining us now with her take on tomorrow night's big debate in the upcoming election is the chairwoman of the Michigan Republican Party, Gina Loudon, one of the rising stars again in today's GOP. Thank you so much for joining us here on Real America's Voice, American Sunrise. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Chairwoman, tell us, why have the debates? What is your anticipation of this debate? Because a lot of people say they're not even going to tune in. What do you think? Is it a waste of time?
Well, no, I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it's interesting to hear what everybody is going to talk about. I think it's also going to give us some insight on the issues that Republican voters care about. I think it's been a defining season for the Republican Party as to which direction we're going to go in. There's this effort to keep us, the same stodgy party who is losing cycle after cycle. And there's a whole brand of us who are ready to push the party forward while being consistent with our constitutional values and really fight the globalist threat that we face. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of people who are the party faithful, who are the ones who are on the ground, not the political class who benefit from the system, but the everyday man and woman, the everyday Republican voter, they're going to sit back and they're going to assess who is ready to move this party in a direction that's required to save state and nation, and who's going to keep it back to the days of losing. I mean, it's really that simple, in my opinion.
You know, isn't the best thing that some of these candidates could really do is to get on that stage tomorrow night, that debate stage, and just say, I'm done. I'm throwing my support and my money that's going toward my campaign being thrown into the wind, essentially, behind the candidate that obviously the party has chosen already, who is being persecuted with a weaponized legal system that is intolerable, and it's time to defeat the deep state instead of being out here bantering around, creating a lot of nothingness.
Well, you know, I'm never in favor of encouraging people to drop out. I think, you know, people, that's the decision that each candidate needs to make, is how long they want to stay in the race and when their time is up. But to your point regarding the weaponization of the DOJ, I mean, the goal of that is twofold: to strike fear in the heart of every American who questions the deep state. And they do not want people to speak truth about systemic election corruption, which is our biggest threat. You know, I always have been active in the party, but what really kind of catapulted things was when I witnessed firsthand systemic election corruption in Detroit at the TCF Center and the coordinated effort to suppress us from speaking up and telling the truth. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, what entity has the scope or reach to surgically deploy systemic election corruption nationally, simultaneously, and then the effort to label us as insane or liars when we spoke truth about it. And now we see the persecution of President Trump. I mean, if it can happen to him, it can happen to us. But I do think that, you know, let it shake out. I'm very interested to hear what everyone has to say tomorrow night. But I do think it's important for the party to look at, this is a moment in history where we either going to save this country or we're going to be a part of the problem. And I'm very confident the Republican Party will be moving in the right direction.
Christina, you prefaced my next question talking about having witnessed voter fraud there in Detroit. There's obviously been a lot of news coming out of Michigan lately about the special electors and, of course, voting integrity. Is that the key issue you'd like to hear the candidates address, or is there something else Michiganders are even more concerned about these days?
Well, to your point, Michigan's a very interesting case. I don't know if you guys heard of the story of what happened in Muskegon, where a woman showed up to a county, to the city of Muskegon, where she had 8,000 to 10,000 voter registration forms. Many of them had the same signature. The clerks found the alarm. There was a police investigation that led them to a warehouse that had voter registration forms, guns with suppressors on them, and burner phones, and the list goes on. I mean, so election corruption is the number one issue, because if we don't have secure elections, we don't have control of our government. Now, with that being said, I think this is an action item, not a talking point. This is something that, like us at the GOP, but state level and the national level, need to put boots on the ground to prevent it from happening, because what candidates will say will mean a hill of beans if we don't actually stop fraud in 24. But I will tell you what my big concern is in Michigan is the growth of essentially of globalism. To be frank, that is a big concern for us here in Michigan. We had the Chinese Communist Party trying to put a battery factory 100 miles from the largest National Guard training facility in the United States of America, right on the Muskegon River, right where we grow a large supply of our food. We have the World Economic Forum has 2 offices in Michigan. They receive $6 million of our tax dollars. My county, in Oakland County, we have the United Nations actively implementing UN Agenda 2030. So the fight, in my opinion, is Americans versus globalists. We're well beyond Republican versus Democrat. It is Americans versus globalists. That is the fight. And if we don't get real about that fight, we will lose.
Absolutely. Christina Caramo, thank you so much for being with us. Coming up, we will have Carrie Lake. You're not going to want to miss it because that's next. She's been banned from the spin room at the GOP debates. We're going to ask her about that. And would she accept the nomination of VP?
A lot of you would hope so.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina in the RAV West Palm Beach studios. Got a couple of comments, Miranda.
Yeah, let's share them. Yeah, I'm Miranda Khan, also with us, Terrance Bates in Denver, and of course our good friend David Brody in the DC swamp. So a couple comments that you wanted to share real quickly.
Yeah, Cassie too asks, so if Trump comes out of this debate with over 50%, will the GOP finally support him? I think that's a great question for pondering.
Well,
I think there has to come a time where we stop playing this game of, oh, maybe there's another candidate.
No way.
Yeah, well, and then going to your point even further, we could add to that. Again, the president's supposed to be arrested. Let's just not forget that the day after the debate. And he and 18 others, right, are supposed to turn themselves in, if you will, by Friday. They kind of sped everything up, hoping to arrest him, of course, get that mugshot. So where's the Republican Party? Why aren't they saying more
Where's
about
Ronna
this?
McDaniel screaming from the rooftops on every place she can get her face, right, about this topic? Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the GOP establishment, in answer to the viewer's question, no. I mean, the GOP establishment is going to be dragged kicking and screaming to the bitter end. Bitter end for them, positive for America, which is Donald Trump as the nominee. They don't want anything to do with Donald Trump, the GOP establishment. They want him. They've wanted him out of here for so long. So this idea that if Donald Trump's poll numbers continue to increase, they don't care. They will sabotage their own party, their own well-being. They don't even care. They just want Donald Trump to never sniff the nomination. I'm talking about the rhinos. I'm talking about the GOP establishment. I'm talking about all of these folks. So it doesn't matter. It does not matter how well Trump's poll numbers are until the end, where they're going to have to accept it.
Right. This is why we got to drain the swamp, right? And that's what we're going to do right now. Sponsored by Sea of Mud Apparel Company. Let's do it.
This segment sponsored by Sea of Mud. Go to seaofmud.com SeeofMud.com. Use the promo code RAV1776 for 15. That's a big percentage off. 15% off. They are rural America's patriotic apparel company, American made, and they have much more than t-shirts. They have knives, drinkware, swimwear, jewelry. Miranda and I were having a field day looking over this website. They are true patriots over at Sea of Mud. Please go check them out. SeaofMud.com. Promo code RAV1776. RAV1776. That gives you your 15% off.
Yeah, be sure and check it out. All right, for our swamp draining story today, you ready for it? The case against Hunter Biden keeps moving along, albeit at a snail's pace. Former Assistant U.S. District Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Andy McCarthy, says that Justice Department officials, well, they're scared, right, to charge the younger Biden, and that is just an example of how the Biden scheme actually works. So just take a listen.
In the Hunter Biden case, here you have Exhibit A of how the scheme worked. You have these big bad Justice Department prosecutors who aren't supposed to be afraid of anything. They got this guy dead to rights on a 10-year gun felony and tax evasion charges, and they're afraid to charge him. They won't charge him. The case is disappearing. The statute of limitations is running, but they're scared to death to charge him because they don't want to charge Joe Biden's son. They're afraid to do it. They're being told it would be career suicide to pull the trigger on a case like that. This is exactly what access to Joe Biden is. This is why people were willing to pay millions of dollars to get it. That's what the scheme was.
So, David, we're not talking one, we're talking at least 3 attorneys now distancing themselves from Hunter Biden, saying thanks but no thanks. Is this career suicide if they were to try and go after? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's partly that, for sure, what Andrew McCarthy is talking about. But beyond all of that, what's interesting is that there's some new emails, some new leaked emails that show that Christopher Clark, Hunter's former lawyer, Hunter Biden's former lawyer, went to the DOJ. He went to the DOJ, this was a few months ago during the plea deal, and said, listen, if you charge Hunter Biden with any of this stuff, I'm going to put President Joe Biden on the stand as a defense witness. And so I'm just letting you know. So in other words, he's playing the president of the United States, Joe Biden, as like a collateral, not damage in this point, but basically as a witness to basically threaten the DOJ to say, don't you dare charge Hunter Biden, because then we're going to have to put President Joe Biden on the stand. I know you don't want that. So, I mean, this is the type of, strongman stuff that we're seeing from the Hunter Biden lawyer team.
David, colloquially, what you're describing is called a get out of jail free card.
Right.
No doubt about it. All right, coming up, the Joint Chiefs of Staff says that drag queens on military bases, that's no big deal. Well, up next, former Green Beret Joe Kent has some force for Mark Milley. That will be next in just a moment.
morning is going well on this Tuesday. I'm Miranda Khan, joined by Dr. Gina. We are coming to you live from West Palm Beach, and David Brody joining us once again in D.C. Big headline.
Yeah, this headline from Free Beacon is getting attention and some unexpected laughter directed at Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley. Says a handful of drag queen shows on military bases doesn't mean that the military went woke. In a recent interview, Milley said, quote, "I'll use drag queen shows as an example how many times it happened. It happened a few. That's true. Probably shouldn't happen, but it did. But to say that the entire military went woke because of a handful of drag queen shows that shouldn't happen to begin with, I think, is an overstatement."
Probably shouldn't happen. You think? Where is the outrage? I mean, right?
Well, and the thing is that this is Milley says, oh, well, this might not be the biggest deal in the world. First of all, yes, it is. But beyond all of that, it's just a whole litany of stuff from the Pentagon. I mean, you've got them at West Point. The cadets are reading Understanding Whiteness. So you've got like pamphlets like that. And you have physical requirements now in the military where you only have to do 10 push-ups instead of, I think it was 15, 20. I don't know what it was. But the point is they will keep lowering the standards. And this is the type of stuff. And I haven't even gotten to transgenders in the military. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It does, unfortunately. Well, Joe Kent spends some time in the Army Special Forces and is a candidate for Congress in Washington State, and he joins us live now. Joe, good to see you.
Good to see you guys, too. Thanks for having me.
Joe, Mark Milley shrugged this off as no big deal, but we used to joke about this happening on a submarine out to sea for months at a time. This is becoming prevalent in a woke military, Joe.
It absolutely is. I mean, so first off, as you mentioned, this is just the tip of the iceberg with what's happening right now in our military. But with Mark Milley saying that this was just a few times, it's not that big of a deal. I believe the majority of these drag shows that happened in front of children, which is absolutely ridiculous. You know, service members drop their kids off at a military school or daycare, and the next thing you know, while they're off serving their country, their kids are being indoctrinated with this nonsense. So that's atrocious to begin with. But also the military currently has these DEI commissars at every single combatant command that are ensuring that people are adhering to the proper ideology in our military right now. So this is absolute insanity. Joe Biden has taken the most combat-hardened military that we've had, thanks to 20 years of the global war on terror, and he's absolutely destroyed it in 3 short years. And we're suffering from recruitment issues at a time when we're pushing closer to major conflict in the Pacific and potentially even in Europe.
Joe, David Brody here in D.C. What does a woke military mean for America? How does it affect the mission? What does it mean ultimately to our safety and national security here at home?
It means we're far less safe. We're not ready to fight tonight. You have a military that is focusing on these woke standards, these woke ideologies, as opposed to doing what the military is supposed to do, which is train to close with and destroy the enemy, period, full stop, end of story. Instead, they're really focusing on what the political ideologies of our leadership are. I mean, and really, the DEI and the wokeness, it is being used as a loyalty test, not to the United States Constitution, not to the mission, but to the Biden regime. I think that's probably what's the most egregious in this whole scenario.
Joe, I have to ask you, because we keep seeing report after report. Obviously, we know the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. The suicide rates went up because of that. Deadliest day in that war's history. Then you have the COVID shot, people still not allowed to go back into the military. That issue's happening right now. And David, as you've mentioned, the requirements, the physical requirements are going down. And I'm looking at recent reports, and it's showing that it's been really hard to get people to want to enlist in the military. And now they're lowering those goals. What are you hearing from your brothers and sisters that have served in the military like yourself? What are they telling you? Real quickly.
Well, unfortunately, there's been a mass exodus of experienced non-commissioned officers and officers. We were at war for 20 years. We had a cadre of professional soldiers who fought those conflicts year after year. But after Biden came in and he put the woke criteria into the loyalty test of being a military member, the COVID vaccine, and then the disastrous Afghan withdrawal, many of those experienced soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines are getting out of the military at their first opportunity. So now we essentially have a fresh slate in the United States military and a recruiting crisis. And this is extremely dangerous for us.
It is.
Joe, we want to thank you for being on. We've got to go. We've got a hard stop here, but we want to thank you and tell you we want to have your cat on again when you come back next week. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
All right, let's head back over to Terrance in Denver with a look at your headline, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, the markets are open now, and it looks like the Dow Jones is in the green. Right now, the NASDAQ is steady, and the S&P 500 also in the green. So starting off on a fairly good note, that's the good news to report this morning. Not so good news for American banks, though, as the number of American banks are seeing their credit ratings cut as the banking crisis appears to still be away. On Monday, Wall Street-based S&P Global revised its outlook for multiple U.S. banks, including UMB Financial, Comerica Bank, and KeyCorp. The moves come amid concerns about funding risk and a higher reliance on broker deposits, among other issues. S&P says a sharp rise in interest rates is also weighing on many U.S. banks' funding and liquidity. Plus, the company believes that deposits held by Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation's insured banks will continue to decline amid the Federal Reserve's economic policies. Earlier this month, you may remember, rating agency Moody's cut the ratings of 10 U.S. banks, including 6 major ones. We're just days away from the Durban Accords. In fact, it happens today. It's the greatest threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in the past 80 years. Today, BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are expected to announce the launch of a new international supercurrency that's fully backed by gold or other commodities. This is all part of their long-term plan to supplant the United States and the U.S. dollar as cornerstones of the global financial system. So, how can you protect your IRA or 401k from the fallout from this landmark announcement? It's simple. Just diversify with gold from the Birch Gold Group. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty like right now. Get a free information kit on gold IRAs and decide for yourself if a tax-sheltered retirement account backed by physical precious metals is the right thing for you. You can get that information simply by texting the word America to the number 989898. There's a monumental shift happening right now among nations that control 1/3 of the world's GDP, and it all kicks off today. So arm yourself with information to protect your retirement savings by texting the word America to the number 989898 and claiming your free information kit on gold from the Birch Gold Group. That's a quick check of your economic headlines.
All righty. Thanks, Terrance.
Thanks, Terrance. Coming up, 2024, getting saucy.
Ooh.
And speaking of saucy, Carrie Lake will be here, and we will be back in just a moment.
back. It is 34 minutes past the hour. Dr. Gina and I are here once again in West Palm Beach, and David Brody joining us in D.C. All right, the primary elections, you know what? They're getting saucy.
Saucy.
Saucy. All right, this segment sponsored by our good friends over at Red State Barbecue. RedStateBarbecue.com is the website. Go use that promo code RAV10 for 10% off, and maybe next time I'll be invited to a barbecue.
I'm so sorry.
She had an amazing barbecue.
Just don't listen, Miranda. They have a brand new apple bourbon sauce. Or you can grab their classic flavors, but I tried this apple bourbon.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Other flavors include Memphis sweet, Texas spicy. They have North Carolina, South Carolina local barbecue sauce flavors, and even an Alabama Roll Tide and a Kentucky style barbecue sauce. RedSauceBarbecue.com, promo code RAV10 for your 10% off must try.
It's Red State. I think you said red sauce, but that's because we start. I think what happens is we start salivating because we start thinking about the barbecue and we get hungry.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, speaking of saucy, shall we go to our first saucy headline? Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Why not? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there. Take a look. He's increasing in the polls, especially in South Carolina. He is surging among South Carolina likely Democrat primary voters. This is a Zogby poll, three-way election. If it were held today, Biden leading 55% to Kennedy's 24% in a head-to-head matchup. Ladies, this is always very interesting to me, this RFK Jr. Situation, very much like Trump in the sense that he's the outsider, he's the crusader, he's the populist. And, and in Iowa, just, what was it, about a week ago at the Iowa State Fair, he had a huge crowd. He had more people around him. Well, of course, Donald Trump had the most. Then RFK Jr. had a huge contingent, and then it was like womp womp with the rest of the Republican candidates. Not many had that big of a crowd around him. But that says everything you need to know about RFK Jr. and his popularity.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but David, media blackout. I mean, I just...
You're right.
True.
You're right.
On corporate media, I hear nobody say nothing. Right?
Right.
They're not saying anything. And the reason is because it's, they're all in the tank for Biden. I say in the tank for Biden, whatever the placeholder is for the liberal left agenda, they don't really care who it is, honestly. Biden
Obama.
really might not
sorry.
be their cup of. Yeah, Michelle Obama. Well, they would love Michelle Obama because they think Michelle Obama can actually win a general election. But we'll see what happens. I want to bring up another story here. Speaking of getting saucy, Vivek Ramaswamy and Bill Maher got a little saucy the other day in a conversation they had on his HBO show. It had to do with Trump. Have a listen to this.
Really, you were that tuned out from politics?
I mean, what Trump was saying on a given day in 2016.
Not a given day.
Really.
That was replayed a zillion times because he was impeached over this.
I think the impeachment, though, I can talk about. I mean, the impeachment was on a flawed basis. I mean, that's a hard reason. We now understand. But here's the problem right now. We are still spending, and this is why I'm in this race. We have spent literally 7 years now relitigating and rehashing that series of events that, whatever they are, is not going to change.
Well, yes,
and I think that's what's wrong with this election right now as well.
Here's the thing, ladies. Bill Maher has been so good on some of the woke stuff, and that's really about it. I mean, on Trump, obviously he doesn't get it. And what's interesting is if that clip goes on for at least 3 or 4 more minutes, and as you listen to Vivek Ramaswamy explain it, he looks at Bill Maher and he says, "So what law did Trump break exactly?" And this is what Bill Maher said: "The oath of office. Yeah, that's a law." Got it. Okay. Breaking your oath of office is a law. And Vivek Ramaswamy looks at him like, you got to be kidding me. But this is what the liberals do. They talk in generalities. They have no clue what's coming out of their mouth.
Yeah. And he was very complimentary, though, to that point of Vivek. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to help Vivek if he wants that endorsement. All right, now it's time to spill some tea. You ready? And of course, this is sponsored by good friends at Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com is the place to go. Use promo code RAV and you will save 10%. And it is amazing tea.
Artillery tea.
Yeah.
It's all natural. It's whole leaf. None of that dusty stuff. The tea bags are chemical free. Each tea bag can be used twice. It also smells amazing.
For your Terrance, maybe 3-4 times.
Right.
But yeah.
You can even use it as a sachet because it smells so good.
Sachet chanté.
Yeah.
All right. Artillery Tea Company is family. This is what makes it even better. They're a family, veteran owned and operated. And guess what? A portion of your purchase actually goes to help veterans and first responders as well in their charities.
ArtilleryTeaCo.com. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Promo code RAV for 10% off. And speaking of tea, New York City Guardian Angel Curtis Siwa is teed off. Speaking of, Terrance, can you clue us in what's happening in New York?
Absolutely. I got the backstory here. So here it is. Former New York City mayoral candidate Curtis Lewa was actually arrested for a second time in recent days during an illegal immigrant housing protest after blocking a road in an act that he called civil disobedience. Lewa was arrested on Sunday while protesting the Midland Beach migrant shelter on Staten Island. You're actually looking at some video footage that shows Lewa and his supporters protesting in front of the Midland Beach migrant shelter, which was formerly the Midland Beach Senior Citizen Home. And as you can see here, he was put in cuffs and paraded away in front of everyone. And we see this quite often, people who are pushing back against some of these woke policies, particularly in cities where that are sanctuary cities, if you will. They're being arrested and they are being chastised for their actions. And they're really just reflecting kind of the sentiment of regular everyday Americans who are upset that so many more resources are being put towards these illegal immigrants than are being put towards regular American citizens.
Yeah. And now,
I can't ever help but see is those police officers that I feel like we as conservatives have supported for so long and in so many ways. And I'm always shocked when any police officer participates in that malarkey.
Yeah, for sure. And also, let's remember Eric Adams. I mean, he called New York the sanctuary city, and then all of a sudden, you know what? We're having problems with this sanctuary city stuff. And Eric Adams actually has a policy now, or at least he wants to make it a policy, where if you're an illegal immigrant and you can't find shelter, he's asking people in New York, if you've got a spare bedroom, I kid you not, look it up. If you got a spare bedroom, if you could house an illegal immigrant, we'd really appreciate it. Really? Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
and when you think about that, though, and how much people are paying for rent and mortgages, not to mention people in Maui who don't even have a home, that we're giving housing to people who have broken our laws, who entered this country illegally, and we have no idea where they came from because they're
veterans
and our veterans that are on the street. You're right.
Many of whom are homeless. Many of whom suffer from PTSD and other problems resulting from their service, and they lay on the streets while we are finding homes for people that are illegally invading our country.
It's also a disconnect, if you will, between the rhetoric of what some of these politicians like Eric Adams are saying and their actions. Let's not forget, Eric Adams is saying, yeah, we'll welcome all refugees, we'll welcome all immigrants here. We are open, yet they're also shipping those people to neighboring communities the moment they arrive there because they're overfilled, they're out of capacity, and they're trying to put the burden on some of these other neighboring and suburban communities. So the rhetoric doesn't necessarily match the actions.
Right. And let's also remember that, it's great to take in, help your neighbor. We want to do that. It's a biblical concept. But there is something called vetting, like a vetting process. And like, can we get a background check? And can we make this? I got to tell you, I mean, real quick, I know we got to go, but my wife and I for decades have taken in folks from all over different countries, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, all of that. We've done that. But we also want to make sure that, they're not coming in here with some potential illegal baggage, and if that's part of the vetting process, because the federal government's sure not going to vet these folks.
No, they're not at all. In fact, I mean, they got rid of, as you know, the Biden administration got rid of the whole DNA testing. We've talked about it time and time again with our law and border team, which is phenomenal. But that was just kind of quietly just kind of pushed under the rug. Don't pay attention to that. But that is how we were able to prove whether or not someone was actually family member or not, and not smuggling a kid to be sex trafficked throughout the country. Biden administration got rid of that. So we have no idea. They just simply drop their IDs. They just say who they are. Here's the drink. Here, would you like a hotel room? Let me set you up. It's ridiculous.
And no accountability going further. Like then they disappear into the woodwork.
Well, David, since you brought up vetting, the only vet that we know comes out of 1600 is that one that's parked in the garage next to all of those files. It's the only vetting happening.
Oh, Terrance.
Good point.
Listen, it was a secure garage.
Waitresses.
It was a secure garage, and he also got 81 million votes. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, whatever. Didn't he also have paperwork in that garage? Isn't that funny how that paperwork is still there?
Yeah.
Remember? Because of the fire? Just throwing that out. In case you're all just tuning in, we were basically criticizing, not basically, we are criticizing Biden. Full stop right there. We're not going to beat around the bush for his horrific response to the people of Maui, that he finally took time away from his vacation, which, by the way, he spent 40% of his presidency on vacation. To get up off of the beach, to get off his bike, to finally say something, to finally visit those people. And what does he do? He compares it to a kitchen fire that I don't even know if he really had, because he says so much that are lies.
A kitchen fire that was contained in 20 minutes.
Right.
And he was concerned that it might damage his Corvette and his cat. And he's literally comparing that to these people, where 850 people are still missing in Hawaii, probably mostly children. Is estimated, and it just you can't compare total loss like that, loss of human life, to your kitchen fire. I just it's mind blowing.
It is.
Yeah, and he's been lying for a very long time. Yeah.
He has. There's actually clips of Johnny Carson making fun of Biden lying. That's how long ago it's been. He's been in office for over 50 years. We still have a lot more coming your way. Big guests coming up.
Carrie
Can't
Lake
wait.
coming up. She and other Trump surrogates were just banned from the GOP debate spin room. But will she take that one sitting down? I'm going to ask her. Carrie Lake up next. Back in a moment. Miranda Khan and I in the house here in West Palm Beach studios.
You can tell that coffee's getting in you now. That
Yeah, you
beard, that
can.
coffee, like
Yeah.
you can feel it. I like it. I like
Thank
it.
you for just pumping me up. All right. Breaking overnight, Trump surrogates were banned from the GOP presidential primary debate that is happening tomorrow in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Trump family and other notable Trump supporters and surrogates, like our next guest, were told they are not welcome in the spin room, along with the surrogates of other candidates. So
I wonder how they spun that.
Right.
You like that? Oh, sorry. Can't help it. I know.
You really did that.
I did. I didn't want to let you down there. But you know what? At the end of the day, who cares? And I'm looking forward to hearing Kari Lake's opinion about that. But do they really care? I mean, I don't know if it would make that big of a difference or not, because going back to your point, you don't think most people are going to watch?
Well, my question is, where the heck is Ronna McDaniel? Why is she not standing up for the leading
Because we all know the
GOP
answer.
candidates?
You know the answer.
Okay, but I think that we
know
have to
it.
continue to put the pressure where it belongs, and that is on Ronna McDaniel, who could have raised a big stink about this. She could have called every single news outlet, including ours, and gotten her face on there today to say this is unacceptable.
Well, but here's the thing, though. You going to that point, though. Like, she was like, well, if they don't sign the pledge, then they can't participate in the debate. Really, the outrage should be, what's going on with Trump and 18 others in Georgia. Joining us now, though, the one you've been waiting for,
Kari Lake. Kari, great to have you. Thank you for joining us so bright and early. Did you cancel your trip to Milwaukee now that they tell you that Trump surrogates are not welcome? Because if I know Kari Lake, she's going to be defiant here. I imagine, and I'm just guessing, this is me just like a Babe Ruth point, I bet you're going to try to walk in that spin room anyway. Tell us.
Well, I'm sitting here in Milwaukee right now, so that should answer your question. I will be at the debate, and I plan to be in the spin room as well. It is a free country, and I think people need to hear from people in the America First movement. That's what the American people want. They're excited. President Trump is so far ahead in the polls. I don't think we've ever seen a candidate this far ahead in the polls. And the people want to hear from America First, from the America First movement. We're not going to let Fox keep us from talking about President Trump. He's proven himself time and time again. We had an incredible economy. I know as a mom, I felt like we were living in a safer world. I didn't feel nervous walking across the grocery store parking lot when President Trump was president. And, I know that my kids were going to grow up in a safe country with our liberties intact. And we've watched a disaster named Joe Biden lead our country to the brink of destruction. I think everyone's ready to have President Trump back. I'm excited to be there as a surrogate for him, and I know that his interview with Tucker is going to be, it'll probably break the internet, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to say as well.
Well, Kari, forgive me if I don't understand the role of someone like Ronna McDaniel, who is supposed to be cheering, this entire event. She's the one who was so adamant that everyone must sign this pledge that they'll support the eventual winner of the primary, no matter what. Donald Trump had said he's not going to, and she has said, well, no one's going to grace the debate stage unless they do. So she's willing to really throw her weight behind her rules, right? So where is Ronna McDaniel in defending people like you, people like Kimberly Guilfoyle, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and others who were supposed to serve in this spin room at these debates? Where is the voice of Ronna McDaniel right now?
Well, I'm hoping that she is speaking out for us. I don't think she's happy that we're being kept out. And so I think my bet is that she will have a phone call and she will speak out and support us today. I'm hoping that is what she will do. And, I think that President Trump is going to be fine missing this debate. It's just going to be a setup by Fox. You know how it is. Bret Baier will ask a bunch of nasty questions, try to get President Trump. Who knows? They might even try to get him in legal trouble. And so I think it's smart that he's sitting this one out. These guys are all, I like to say, I used to call them the Little League team, but I think they're more of the T-ball team than what we're dealing with President Trump, which is the Babe Ruth of all of politics. And why would we even waste his time? We know that he can do the job. He's done the job before, and he's done it quite well, and the American people miss him.
Kari, I actually have two questions for you, but going to that point of debates, and you think that it's smart of him to sit this one out. You were in fairness, very critical of Katie Hobbs for refusing to debate you in the governor's race. So do you also believe that there's a difference here? Because a lot of people on the left are criticizing you for saying, okay, it was wrong of Katie Hobbs not to want to debate me. She was scared. She didn't want to set the record straight, but it's okay for Trump to sit out this debate. Explain why there's a difference here.
Well, that was a general election, and she had never debated before. She'd never held that position. We didn't know what her plans were. She didn't have any policy. President Trump has laid out his policy. He's done the job before. We know he could do the job. And I did appear in a primary debate, and I did balk when they brought all these people who were polling at 0 and 1% in. It's just a distraction. Nobody's polling even close to where President Trump is. And had I been the runaway winner in the primary, where I was up like President Trump, 30, 40, 50 points in the polls, I would have said this is just a waste of time. These people aren't even serious. They're not serious contenders. So that's how I explain that. I think he will show up and debate in the general. I'm pretty sure that he will do that. The question is, will Joe Biden show up?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think you described it really well when you said these debates are an audition for a job. Donald Trump has already auditioned with his entire last administration, where
he's
his
done
promises
it.
made, promises kept. That was a great tweet. I retweeted you on that.
But also, you know, I want to go back to a point that Gina brought up, talking about Ronna McDaniel. I mean, let's not forget, it just came out last night that Trump is supposed to be arrested the day after this debate in Fulton County, Georgia, where the sheriff there has bragged about getting this mugshot. Why isn't Ronna McDaniel and, frankly, more Republicans standing up against this? I mean, whether, you know, you want to be president or not, you should be outraged that they're going after the leading candidate in a Republican Party and a president at that.
I think every candidate tonight on the debate stage should denounce what's happening, call it what it is, the weaponization of our federal government against a citizen, and denounce that. And I hope they will do that. But unfortunately, some of the people on that stage are salivating at the thought of President Trump being brought down by this injustice, this persecution. And that's what's really, I think that really is turning off the American people, watching some of these candidates. I won't name names, but people who actually owe their political career to President Trump, salivating at the thought of him being brought down by a corrupt system. And I think they really need to stand up for President Trump tonight. I hope they'll do that. I think that would be smart of them.
Yeah. You know, in our chat, and we follow along with our viewers, and we pay a lot of attention to questions that they have. And they love the idea of a Donald Trump and Carrie Lake for vice president ticket. So I would be remiss, and my audience would be all over me if I didn't ask, if he asks you to become his running mate, what would your answer be, Carrie?
Oh my gosh. Well, I first want to make sure we get, you know, the election, and we are supportive of President Trump and everything we do to make sure that none of these shenanigans hurt him along the way, because we do need him. As a mother, I'm so concerned about my children's future, and I know President Trump is the man for the job. I think whoever he picks will be great, and I will vote for President Trump and his vice president, and I can't wait to vote for him and whoever he picks. I will do anything I can to help him.
So does that mean that if it's you, you would be honored to take his suggestion? Is that what that means?
I'd have to think about that when if that day comes. I really haven't. I don't think too far in the future. I kind of think here and now. What can we do in the here and now to ensure our future? And so you all know where I stand on President Trump. I think he's the greatest president this country's ever seen. I will do anything in my power to help him. And if that means, helping him in any way that he asks, I would really have to consider that. But I'm actually deeply considering a potential run for the U.S. Senate in Arizona. I'm pondering that. I'm looking at that and considering jumping into that race. So I have a lot on my plate of what I'm looking at, and I want to make sure we get President Trump in the White House to turn this nightmare around, to stop this sink this sinking ship, to pull it back up and get us back on solid footing, and really prevent this steady and fast march into World War III that Joe Biden seems hell-bent on dragging us into. And I think we're forgetting about that because of all of the other distractions out there. Joe Biden is still beating the war drums, and he wants our sons and daughters to go over and fight a war in a foreign land when we have wide open borders and an invasion on our own border.
Carrie, the show ends at the top of the hour, so we're about to get cut off. But please don't go anywhere, because thanks to the wonders of technology, we're going to continue this conversation for a few extra minutes on Rumble. So if you are out there watching on television, just switch over to Rumble and join in on the conversation, because we'd love to hear from you.
War Room is next, and we will continue, as we said, with you on Rumble. Also, join Miranda and I today at 4 o'clock on Special Report.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Now, the Indian Prime Minister, along with the Indian delegation, is in Johannesburg for the 15th BRICS Summit. It will be the first in-person BRICS Summit after 3 consecutive years of virtual meetings because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And just like the other world leaders, Prime Minister Modi is also being greeted by dancers from South Africa doing their native dance.
Wow, he's finally here. Wow, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for nothing.